Claire Watson stood at the viewing port of the USS Harmony, watching the purple and gold planet grow larger on the screen. The Centauri homeworld looked beautiful from space, with its 3 moons casting long shadows across the surface. She had been traveling for 6 months to reach this place, carrying a message that could change everything between humans and the Centauri Empire. Captain Jake Morrison walked up beside her, his weathered face showing concern. "Ambassador, we're getting closer to their defense grid? Their ships are already moving to intercept us." Claire nodded without looking away from the planet. "They know we're coming. The question is whether they'll listen to what we have to say." The bridge of the USS Harmony buzzed with quiet activity. Lieutenant Ben Parker monitored the communications array while Sergeant Amy Davis kept watch on the tactical display. The ship was a diplomatic vessel, not a warship, but it carried the most important cargo in human space, a final warning. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the Centauri fleet," Ben reported. "They're ordering us to state our business." Claire smoothed her gray diplomatic uniform and walked to the communication station. "Put me through to their High Chancellor. Tell them Ambassador Watson from Earth requests an audience." The main screen flickered and showed a massive alien figure. High Chancellor Vexthal was 9 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that shifted, colors like oil on water. His large black eyes fixed on Claire with what seemed like amusement. "So the soft-skinned humans send another messenger," Vexthal said through the neural translator. His voice carried a tone of boredom. "What does Earth want this time? More trade agreements? Another peace treaty?" Claire stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "Chancellor, we know about your invasion plans. Our intelligence networks have discovered that Centauri forces are gathering at the edge of human space. You intend to attack our colonies in the Kepler system." The Chancellor's 4 arms gestured dismissively. "Your intelligence networks? Humans have been in space for barely 2 centuries. What could you possibly know about our military operations?" "We know enough," Claire replied. "We know that your war council believes humans are weak and divided. We know that you see our peaceful nature as a sign of military weakness. We know that you plan to test this theory by attacking our outer colonies first." Vexthal's skin shifted to a darker shade, showing his irritation. "Even if what you say is true, what of it? The Centauri Empire has conquered 12 star systems. We have defeated species far more advanced than yours. What makes you think we should fear a race that has never fought a real war?" Claire felt Jake tense beside her, but she kept her voice calm. "Because we're giving you a chance to avoid one. Earth formally requests that you cease all hostile activities toward human worlds. In return, we offer continued peaceful coexistence and expanded trade relations." The Chancellor threw back his head and laughed, a sound that came through the translator as harsh clicks and whistles. Other Centauri in the background joined in the laughter. "Peaceful coexistence? Trade relations? Child, your people build gardens on their ships and sing songs about the beauty of space. You have no military to speak of, no weapons that could threaten us, no will to fight even if you did." "You don't know humans as well as you think," Claire said quietly. "I know enough," Vexthal replied. "I know that your colonies are protected by nothing more than patrol ships and good intentions. I know that your largest military vessel carries fewer weapons than one of our scouts. I know that when we arrive at your worlds, your people will surrender rather than see their precious gardens burned." Claire's green eyes hardened. "Chancellor, I'm giving you one last chance. Call off your invasion plans. Find another path forward. This doesn't have to end in war." The Chancellor's amusement faded, replaced by cold calculation. "You dare threaten the Centauri Empire? You, who come in a single ship with no escort, no weapons, no power to back your words? Your warning is meaningless." "It's not a threat," Claire said. "It's a fact. If you attack human worlds, there will be consequences. Consequences that you're not prepared for. The only consequence will be the addition of human worlds to the Centauri Empire," Vexthal said. "Your colonies will become our mining operations. Your people will serve as laborers. Your peaceful nature will make the conquest almost effortless." "Claire, looked at the alien leader for a long moment. She had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but she had prepared for this possibility. Chancellor, you're making a mistake, a very serious mistake. The mistake was yours in coming here, Vexthel replied. Go back to your gardens and your songs. Leave war to those who understand it. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the USS Harmony in silence. Claire stood staring at the blank screen for several seconds before turning to Jake. Captain, set course for Earth, maximum speed. Jake nodded grimly. Yes, ma'am. What should I tell command? Tell them that diplomacy has failed. Tell them that the Zentari Empire has chosen war over peace. Tell them that we tried. She paused, looking back at the alien world one more time. And tell them to activate Protocol 7. Jake's eyes widened. Protocol 7 was something he had hoped never to hear mentioned outside of classified briefings. Ma'am, are you sure? I'm sure. The Chancellor was right about one thing. We are a peaceful people. We prefer to build rather than destroy, to explore rather than conquer. But that doesn't mean we're helpless. She turned away from the viewport. Record everything that happened here, Captain. Every word, every gesture, every dismissal of our warning. History will remember that we gave them a chance. As the USS Harmony turned away from the Zentari homeworld, Claire made her way to her quarters. She had a report to write, one that would change the course of human history. The Zentari had dismissed Earth's warnings, treating them as the empty words of a weak species. They would learn otherwise. In her cabin, Claire opened a secure channel to Earth and began typing her message to the President and the Global Assembly. The words came easily, each one carrying the weight of what was to come. Diplomatic mission to Zentari homeworld complete. Warning delivered and dismissed. Enemy. Believes humans incapable of effective resistance. Recommend immediate implementation of contingency plans. The Zentari Empire has chosen war. We must be ready to give them exactly what they've asked for. She sent the message and sat back in her chair, watching the stars stream past the porthole. The journey back to Earth would take 6 months, but she knew that human fleets were already moving in the darkness between stars. The Zentari thought they knew humanity, but they were about to discover that Earth's greatest strength had always been its ability to surprise those who underestimated it. The peaceful chapter of human history was ending. What came next would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the center of Earth's Supreme Command war room, her hands clasped behind her back as she studied the holographic displays floating in the air around her. 6 months had passed since Claire Watson's diplomatic mission to the Zentari homeworld, and the aliens had made their intentions clear. 3 human colonies in the Kepler system had fallen in the past week, their populations either killed or captured. Status report, Lisa said to the assembled officers. Colonel Mike Thompson stepped forward, his face grim. New Eden colony is completely lost. The Zentari bombardment lasted 12 hours before ground forces landed. We estimate 60,000 civilian casualties. He paused, his voice heavy. Harmony Station tried to evacuate, but the Zentari ships intercepted the transport vessels. No survivors. Lisa felt her jaw tighten, but her expression remained calm. Around the war room, other officers shifted uncomfortably. The losses were staggering, but they were also expected. The colonies had been bait, drawing the Zentari into a trap that had been years in the making. What about Phoenix Colony? She asked, holding out, but barely, Thompson replied. The Zentari are playing with them, testing their defenses. Intelligence. Suggests they're using our people as training exercises for their new recruits. Enough, Lisa said quietly. The room fell silent. Send word to President Foster. Tell him it's time. 2 hours later, President Dan Foster stood before the Global Assembly in Geneva. The massive hall was packed with representatives from every human world, their faces showing the anger and grief that had swept across human space. Foster was a tall man with graying hair and steady brown eyes, but today he carried the weight of an entire species on his shoulders. My fellow humans, he began, his voice carrying across the hall and through quantum transmitters to every human world. For 3 centuries we have chosen the path of peace. We have built cities among the stars, created gardens on distant worlds, and extended our hands in friendship to every species we have encountered. The hall was completely silent. Even the reporters had stopped their usual shuffling and note-taking. Our neighbors have mistaken our restraint for weakness, Foster continued. They have looked at our peaceful nature and seen only victims. The Zentari Empire has attacked our colonies, murdered our civilians, and enslaved our people. They believe we are soft, that we lack the will to fight back. He paused, looking across the assembled representatives. They are wrong. The president's words seemed to hang in the air. I am asking this assembly to vote on a declaration of total war against the Zentari Empire. Not a police action, not a limited response, but full mobilization of every resource. At our disposal, the vote was unanimous. Not a single representative voted against the declaration. As the results were announced, Foster spoke again. The Zentari wanted to see what humans are capable of when pushed to the edge. They will learn that our greatest mistake was showing them mercy when they showed us none. In the underground levels of the Terran Research Division, Dr. Amy Rodriguez led a group of military leaders through corridors that officially did not exist. Amy was a small woman with short black hair and intense brown eyes, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew secrets that could reshape the galaxy. For 50 years we have been preparing for this day, she said as they walked past laboratories filled with technologies that seemed like magic. While the rest of humanity built gardens and composed poetry, we built weapons. General Paul Martinez, a stocky man with scarred hands from his years in the colonial defense force, shook his head in amazement. I had no idea any of this existed. That was the point, Amy replied. Project Prometheus has been hidden behind layers of classified research and false funding reports. As far as the public knows, we've been working on better farming techniques and improved life support systems. They stopped at a massive vault door that required 3 different security scans to open. Inside, floating in a zero-gravity chamber, was a weapon that looked like a piece of crystallized starlight. Antimatter warheads, Amy explained. Each one contains enough destructive power to crack a moon. We have 7,000 of them in storage facilities across the Sol system. The military leaders exchanged glances. Even in their most optimistic projections, they had never imagined weapons of this magnitude. This is just the beginning, Amy continued, leading them to another chamber. Kinetic bombardment platforms, quantum disruption fields, PLASMA cannons that can punch through any known shielding technology. We have weapons that make the Zentari look like children playing with sticks. Meanwhile, in shipyards hidden throughout the asteroid belt, massive construction facilities that had appeared to be civilian mining operations were revealing their true purpose. Workers who had spent years assembling cargo haulers and research vessels now found themselves building instruments of war. Captain Rick Turner stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching as the final armor plating was installed on his ship. The vessel was nearly 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapon systems and protected by energy shields that could deflect anything in the known galaxy. Around it, dozens of similar ships were taking shape. How many ships will be ready for the first wave? He asked his chief engineer. 47 dreadnoughts, 200 cruisers, and over 1,000 smaller vessels, came the reply. The Zentari think they're fighting a peaceful species with a few patrol boats. They have no idea what's coming. In the depths of space, far from any inhabited system, Admiral Lisa Carter's personal flagship, the UES Retribution, waited with a fleet that had been assembled in absolute secrecy. The ships floated in perfect formation, their hulls black as space itself, invisible to any scanning technology the Zentari possessed. Lisa stood on her command bridge, watching the tactical displays as reports came in from across human space. The Zentari were continuing their attacks, growing bolder with each victory. Their messages to their home fleet spoke of easy conquests and weak resistance. "Ma'am," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving confirmation from Earth. Operation Prometheus is approved." All fleet commanders are to proceed with Phase 1. Lisa nodded slowly. Signal all ships. Begin stealth approach to Zentari positions. Remember, we want to catch them completely off guard. As the human fleet began to move through space using technology that bent light around their ships, Lisa thought about the Zentari High Chancellor who had dismissed Claire Watson's warnings. He had been so confident, so certain that humans were weak and defenseless. Send a message to the Zentari. Fleet attacking Phoenix Colony, she ordered. Tell them that the age of human pacifism is over. Tell them that they wanted to see what we're capable of when our people are threatened. She paused, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so peaceful. And tell them that it's too late to run. The message was sent through quantum burst. Transmission reaching the Zentari fleet within minutes. The alien commanders read it with the same amusement their chancellor had shown months earlier. They had no idea that death was already approaching them through the darkness of space, carried by a species they had fatally underestimated. The storm was gathering, and soon the galaxy would learn what humanity looked like when it chose war over peace. Commander Steve Adams stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the Zentari fleet celebration through his ship's advanced sensors. The alien vessels were arranged in a loose formation around the burning remains of Phoenix Colony, their crews broadcasting victory messages back to their homeworld. They had no idea that death was approaching them through the darkness of space. Distance to target? Steve asked his tactical officer. 2,000 kilometers in closing, Lieutenant Carol White replied. They still haven't detected us. Steve nodded. The human stealth technology was working perfectly. To the Zentari sensors, the space around their fleet was empty. They had grown careless after their easy victories, convinced that humans posed no real threat to their superior technology. Sir, we're receiving reports from the other ships in the fleet, his communications officer reported. All vessels are in position and ready to engage. Steve looked at the tactical display showing the positions of both fleets. 47 human dreadnoughts surrounded the Zentari formation like wolves circling their prey. The aliens had 60 ships, but they were older vessels designed for fighting primitive species. They had never faced anything like what was about to hit them. Signal all ships, Steve ordered. Weapons free. Show them what humans can do when they're angry. The first salvo came without warning. Antimatter torpedoes streaked through space. At nearly the speed of light, their warheads containing enough destructive power to vaporize entire city blocks. The Zentari energy shields, which had protected them against every weapon they had ever faced, collapsed under the assault like paper in a hurricane. The alien flagship exploded in a ball of superheated plasma, taking 3 smaller vessels with it. The remaining Zentari ships scattered in panic, their commanders screaming orders through communication channels that the humans were monitoring. What is happening? One Zentari captain broadcast. Where did these ships come from? These weapons are impossible. Steve allowed himself a small smile. Fire at will, don't let any of them escape. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the Zentari fleet was nothing but debris floating in space. Not a single alien ship had managed to damage even one human vessel. The humans had fought with cold efficiency, their weapon systems performing exactly as designed. Casualties? Steve asked. None, sir, his medical officer reported. We took no damage at all. On the Zentari homeworld, High Chancellor Vexthal stared at the tactical display in his war room, his 4 arms trembling with rage and disbelief. The reports from the Phoenix Colony battle made no sense. An entire fleet destroyed by an enemy that should not have existed. How is this possible? He demanded of his military advisors. Our intelligence said the humans had no warships, no weapons capable of threatening us. General Kexmore, the Zentari military commander, studied the battle recordings with growing alarm. Chancellor, these are not the same humans we have been fighting. These ships use technology we have never seen before. Their weapons punch through our shields like they were not even there. That's impossible, Vexthal snapped. We have been watching human space for decades. We know their capabilities. They have cargo ships and research vessels, nothing more. The evidence suggests otherwise, Kexmore replied carefully. These ships appeared from nowhere, destroyed our fleet, and vanished back into space. They are using some form of cloaking technology that makes them invisible to our sensors. Vexthal's skin darkened to a deep purple, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. Then we will send a larger fleet. We will overwhelm them with numbers. Chancellor, Kexmore said, perhaps we should consider negotiation. If the humans have kept this technology secret, there may be more surprises waiting for us. Negotiation? Vexthal's voice rose to a shriek. The Zentari Empire does not negotiate with prey species. We will crush them with our full military might. On Earth, General Nina Brooks stood in the armory of the Luna military base, watching as her soldiers prepared for the ground assault phase of Operation Prometheus. The men and women around her were putting on combat exoskeletons that looked like something from a science fiction movie. How do they feel? She asked Sergeant Jim Parker, who was testing the mobility of his new armor. Like I could punch through a tank, ma'am, he replied. The strength enhancement is incredible. I can lift half a ton without straining. Nina nodded with satisfaction. The combat suits were another secret that humanity had kept hidden from the galaxy. Powered by miniature fusion reactors, they made human soldiers faster, stronger, and more resilient than any known species. What about the weapons? She asked. Corporal Kelly Davis held up a rifle that hummed with contained energy. Plasma carbines, ma'am. They'll cut through Zentari armor like it's made of cloth. We also have micro-missiles, energy grenades, and personal shield generators. Nina looked at her assembled troops. Each soldier was equipped with technology that would have seemed impossible just decades earlier. Remember, we're not just fighting for revenge. We're fighting to show the galaxy that humans are not victims. Every battle we win sends a message to other species who might be watching. The liberation of the captured colonies began 3 days later. Human dropships, invisible to Zentari sensors, landed on the occupied worlds like silent ghosts. The alien garrison troops, who had been enjoying their easy conquest, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy they had never imagined, the first Zentari. Patrol to encounter human ground forces was completely wiped out in less than 30 seconds. The aliens' energy weapons, which had been effective against civilian targets, barely scratched the humans' advanced armor. In return, the human plasma weapons cut through Zentari forces like a hot knife through butter. This is impossible, one Zentari commander broadcast on an open channel. These cannot be the same species. They fight like demons. Nina smiled grimly as she listened to the alien communications. That's the point, she said to her aide. They wanted to see what humans look like when we're pushed too far. Now they know. Within hours, the Zentari forces on all 3 occupied worlds had been completely eliminated. The human soldiers moved through the alien positions with lethal precision, their enhanced reflexes and superior technology making them unstoppable. Not a single human casualty was reported back on Earth. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays as reports came in from across human space. The first phase of Operation Prometheus had been a complete success. The Zentari were beginning to understand that they had made a serious mistake. Ma'am, her communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the Zentari homeworld. They're requesting a meeting, Lisa smiled coldly. Tell them we're not interested in meetings. Tell them that they had their chance to listen to our warnings. Now they get to experience what happens when humans stop being diplomatic. She turned to her staff officers. Prepare the second wave. If they want to see what we're truly capable of, we'll give them a demonstration they'll never forget. As the human fleet prepared for the next phase of the war, word of the battles spread across the galaxy. Other species who had been watching the conflict with mild interest suddenly realized that the humans they had dismissed as peaceful farmers and artists were something far more dangerous. The Zentari Empire had awakened. Something that had been sleeping in the darkness of space, and now it was too late to put it back to sleep. Ambassador Zekthar stood nervously in the docking bay of Babylon Point, the neutral space station that served as a meeting place for diplomatic encounters between different species. His usually confident demeanor was gone, replaced by the anxious movements of someone who knew his people were in serious trouble. The young Zentari diplomat had volunteered for this mission when the older members of the High Council had refused to face the humans after their devastating military defeats. The human shuttle that approached the station was unlike anything he had seen before. It moved with silent precision, its hull reflecting light in ways that made it difficult to track with the naked eye. As it docked, Zekthar felt his heart beating faster in his chest. He had never been this close to the species that was systematically destroying his empire. Claire Watson emerged from the shuttle with the same calm dignity she had shown months earlier when she had tried to warn his people about the consequences of their actions. Her gray hair was pulled back in a simple style, and her green eyes showed no emotion as she walked toward him. Behind her came two human military officers whose presence made Zekthar's skin crawl with instinctive fear. "Ambassador Watson," he said through his translator, trying to keep his voice steady, "thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Claire nodded politely but said nothing as they walked toward the conference room. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of their footsteps on the metal floor. Zekthar had prepared speeches about misunderstandings and the possibility of peaceful resolution, but the words seemed to die in his throat under her steady gaze. The conference room was simple and functional, with a large table in the center, and chairs designed to accommodate different species. Claire took her seat across from Zekthar, her posture straight and professional. The human military officers stationed themselves by the door, their presence a silent reminder of the power that backed her words. "We wish to discuss terms," Zekthar began, his translator struggling with concepts that the Zentari language had rarely needed to express. "The High Council believes that there has been a misunderstanding between our peoples." Claire reached into her briefcase and pulled out a datapad, which she slid across the table toward him. "These are our terms. Read them carefully." Zekthar picked up the device with trembling fingers and activated the display. His eyes widened as he read the demands listed there. Unconditional surrender, complete disarmament of all Zentari military forces, war crimes trials for the High Council. "This is impossible. Those are the terms," Claire replied calmly. "Your people attacked our colonies without provocation. You murdered our civilians and enslaved our people. You dismissed our peaceful warnings and chose war over diplomacy. These are the consequences of those choices." "But you cannot expect us to agree to this," Zekthar protested. "The Zentari Empire has existed for over 1,000 years. We have conquered 12 star systems. You cannot simply demand that we surrender everything." Claire's expression never changed. "You attacked us because you believed we were weak? You thought our peaceful nature meant we were incapable of defending ourselves. You were wrong about both assumptions." Zekthar's skin shifted to a pale blue, a sign of deep distress among his people. "Please, Ambassador Watson. There must be some room for negotiation. Perhaps we could discuss reparations or territorial adjustments or ... "No," Claire said simply. "You had your chance to negotiate. You had your chance to listen to our warnings. You chose violence instead. Now you face the consequences of that choice." While the diplomatic meeting continued on Babylon Point, Admiral Lisa Carter's massive fleet was approaching the outer defenses of the Zentari Empire. The aliens had spent weeks preparing for this moment, building fortress stations and deploying their most advanced weapon systems. They believed their technology and defensive positions would slow the human advance long enough for them to find a way to negotiate. Captain Rick Turner stood on the bridge of the UES destroyer, studying the tactical display that showed the Zentari defensive network. The aliens had turned their border world of Cathalan into a fortress, with orbital weapons platforms and energy shields that could supposedly withstand any assault. "Impressive," his tactical officer commented. "They must have moved half their fleet to defend this system." Rick nodded. "Too bad it won't help them. Signal the fleet." Begin the demonstration. The human ships moved into position with mechanical precision. The Zentari defenders watched nervously as the strange vessels arranged themselves in a formation they had never seen before. Their sensors showed massive energy buildups in the human ships, but the readings were unlike anything in their databases. All ships, Rick announced over the fleet communication system. Fire! The siege cannons that humanity had kept secret for decades unleashed their fury on the Zentari defenses. The weapons used principles of physics that the aliens had never mastered, creating focused beams of energy that could punch through any known material. The fortress moon that anchored the Zentari defensive line simply vanished, reduced to constituent atoms in less than a second. The Zentari fleet commanders watched in horror, as their most powerful defenses were swept away like dust in the wind. Ships that had seemed invincible were destroyed so quickly that their crews had no time to send distress signals. The entire defensive network collapsed in under an hour. "This is impossible," one Zentari admiral broadcast on an open channel. "No species should possess such weapons. Where did the humans get this technology?" On Earth, President Don Foster stood before the assembled media, his face grave but determined. Behind him, displays showed the systematic destruction of Zentari military installations across their empire. The cameras captured every moment as human forces demonstrated their overwhelming superiority. "Let this be a lesson to any species that would mistake our love of peace for inability to wage war," he said, his voice carrying across the galaxy through quantum transmission networks. "Humanity tried diplomacy. We offered friendship. We extended our hand in peace. The Zentari Empire chose violence instead." He paused, looking directly into the cameras. "Now they face the consequences of that choice. We will not stop until every Zentari military installation is destroyed and every war criminal is brought to justice. This is what happens when you force a peaceful species to war." Deep in the Zentari homeworld's military command center, High Chancellor Vexthal stared at the reports coming in from across his empire. System after system was falling to the human advance. His most powerful fleets were being destroyed without inflicting any significant damage on the enemy. The species he had dismissed as weak farmers and artists had revealed themselves to be the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever seen. "Chancellor," General Kexmore said quietly, "we have one option left. The planet killer weapon?" Vexthal's forearms trembled with rage and desperation. The weapon was their most closely guarded secret, a device capable of destroying entire worlds. It had been built as a last resort, something to use only when the Empire itself was threatened. "Prepare the weapon," he ordered. "Target the human homeworld. If we cannot defeat them, we will make them pay the ultimate price." But even as the order was given, human intelligence agent Kate Sullivan was already at work in the weapons control systems. The humans had known about the planet killer for months, and their agents had been quietly infiltrating its security networks. When the Zentari tried to fire their ultimate weapon, they would discover that humans had been several steps ahead of them all along. As the fourth phase of Operation Prometheus continued, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The peaceful species that had once been dismissed as harmless had revealed themselves to be anything but. The Zentari Empire, which had seemed invincible just weeks earlier, was crumbling under the relentless human assault, and in the depths of space, more human fleets were moving toward their targets, carrying weapons that would make the Zentari's worst nightmares seem like pleasant dreams. The age of human pacifism was over, and the galaxy was about to learn what that truly meant. The war ended not with explosions or grand battles, but with a simple transmission from the Zentari High Council to Admiral Lisa Carter's flagship. High Chancellor Vexthal, his voice broken and his spirit crushed, spoke the words that marked the end of his empire's reign of terror. "We surrender unconditionally to the human forces," his message said. "The Zentari Empire submits to all terms and conditions set forth by Earth Command. We request mercy for our civilian populations." Lisa stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as the last Centauri military installations powered down their weapons and lowered their shields. Around her, the human fleet maintained its formation, ready to respond if the aliens tried any last desperate tricks. But the fight had gone out of the Centauri completely. Their planet-killer weapon had turned on them when they tried to fire. It, destroying their main military command center and killing half their war council. Their fleets were scattered or destroyed. Their empire was finished. "Signal all ships," Lisa ordered. "Cease fire but maintain alert status. Begin occupation." Procedures according to Protocol 8. Captain Jake Morrison, who had been promoted to Lisa's staff after his service with Ambassador Watson, approached with a datapad. "Ma'am, we're receiving surrender requests from 47 Centauri worlds. Their local governors are asking for protection from their own military forces." Lisa nodded grimly. "Grant the requests. Position our ships over their major cities and begin establishing order. Make it clear that we're there to protect civilians, not to conquer them." On the Centauri homeworld, former High Chancellor Vexel sat in a holding cell aboard a human transport ship, waiting to be taken to Earth for trial. The once proud leader who had dismissed humanity's warnings now wore simple prison clothes and kept his 4 arms folded tightly around his body. Through the small window of his cell, he could see human ships filling the sky above his former capital city. Judge William Carter, Admiral Carter's younger brother and head of the war crimes commission, entered the cell with 2 human guards. William was a tall man with kind eyes and graying hair, but his voice carried the weight of absolute authority when he spoke. "Vexel," he said simply, "you will be transported to Earth to stand trial for crimes against humanity. You have the right to legal representation and the right to speak in your own defense." The former chancellor looked up with dull eyes. "What is the point? Your people have won. Do with me what you will." William sat down across from the alien, his expression serious but not unkind. "The point is justice. You ordered the attacks on our colonies. You were responsible for the deaths of over 100,000 human civilians. You dismissed our peaceful warnings and chose war over diplomacy. These actions have consequences." "I underestimated your species," Vexel said quietly. "I believed you were weak because you chose peace. I thought your lack of visible military meant you had no ability to fight." "I was wrong about everything." "Yes, you were," William agreed. "But being wrong doesn't excuse the crimes that followed. Tomorrow you will stand before a court of justice and answer for what you did." The trials began 3 weeks later in the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Representatives from dozens of species came to watch as the architects of the Centauri war crimes faced human justice. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy, showing the universe how humanity dealt with those who attacked innocent people. Judge William Carter presided over the main trial, his voice calm and measured as he read the charges against the Centauri leadership. "You stand accused of unprovoked aggression against human colonies, the murder of civilian populations, the enslavement of captured humans, and the planning of genocidal attacks against the human homeworld." The evidence was overwhelming. Recorded communications, battle data, and testimony from survivors painted a clear picture of deliberate atrocities committed by the Centauri military. The defendants were allowed to speak in their own defense, but their arguments that they had been following orders or acting in the interests of their empire fell on deaf ears. When the verdicts were announced, the galaxy listened in silence. Most of the Centauri military leadership received life imprisonment. High Chancellor Vexel, as the primary architect of the war, was sentenced to death. The sentences were carried out swiftly and without ceremony, sending a clear message that humanity would not tolerate attacks on innocent people. President Don Foster stood before a gathering of alien ambassadors in the newly constructed Galactic Assembly Hall on Luna. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from over 200 species, all of whom had come to witness the birth of a new galactic order. The war with the Centauri had shown the universe that humanity was no longer the weak, peaceful species that could be safely ignored. "We did not seek this war," Foster said, his voice carrying clearly through the universal translators. We tried diplomacy, we offered friendship. We extended our hand in peace to our neighbors. When they chose violence instead, we showed them the consequences of that choice. He paused, looking out over the assembled delegates. Let me be clear about something. Humanity's capacity for peace has not diminished. We still prefer to build rather than destroy, to explore rather than conquer. But never again will any species mistake our peaceful nature for weakness. In the months that followed, Admiral Lisa Carter, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces, established the new Galactic Defense Doctrine. Human fleets patrolled the major trade routes, their presence a visible reminder of Earth's military might. The advanced weapons that had been secret for so long were now displayed openly, serving as a deterrent to any species that might consider following the Zentauri's example. The galaxy has learned an important lesson, Lisa said to her staff officers during a strategy meeting. Peace is not the absence of the ability to make war. Peace is the choice not to use that ability. We have shown them what happens when someone forces our hand. Former Zentauri worlds were gradually integrated into a new confederation led by humanity. The alien civilians were treated fairly and given the chance to rebuild their societies under human protection. Many of them expressed gratitude for being freed from the oppressive rule of their former empire. Ambassador Claire Watson, now serving as Secretary of Galactic Affairs, received delegations from dozens of species seeking alliance with humanity. In her office overlooking the blue-green Earth, she kept a recording of High Chancellor Vexthel's original dismissal of her warnings. It served as a reminder of the price of arrogance and the importance of listening to those who offer peace. Every species in the galaxy now knows two things about humanity, she told her aide during one particularly busy day of negotiations. First, that we prefer peace to war. Second, that we are very, very good at war when we have to be. The transformation was complete. Humanity had emerged from the conflict not as conquerors but as reluctant guardians of galactic peace. Their fleets patrolled the stars, their diplomats negotiated treaties, and their scientists shared technology with species that proved themselves worthy of trust. But in the deepest archives of Earth's military, the records of Project Prometheus remained classified. The weapons that had broken the Zentauri Empire were still there, waiting in the darkness between stars. They served as humanity's insurance policy against any future species that might mistake kindness for weakness. As the camera pulled back from Earth, now the acknowledged center of galactic civilization, a narrator's voice spoke the words that had become humanity's unofficial motto among the stars. We offered them peace. They chose war. Now they know the difference between cannot fight and will not fight. Across the galaxy, the phrase is whispered in 1,000 languages, too late to run,